All right, time for part two of this video. Part two of the post game of Tennessee Texas A&M. Last night, I spent the whole video clowning Texas A&M fans, clowning Jimbo, saying how great the defense was, how phenomenal they were, saying how much I love D. Williams. Talking about how great the win was. The fact that we're 5-1, all that stuff. Just basically pumping sunshine into the video because that's all I could have done then. Because if I really spoke my mind back then, chances are it would, I wouldn't have been able to say what I really meant because I would have just been angry and mad and just screaming out of my mind because I was. Yes, I was happy on the outside, but I was boiling mad on the inside. And I'm still pissed off today, except to just a lesser degree. Now, of course, if you guys want my post game thoughts on all of the games minus the Tennessee game, then just stay tuned for the Vol Star podcast tonight. Me, Lucas Sharp, and Julio, we're going to talk about it 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jump around on there, and yeah. So we'll talk about all the games, or at least talk about the results that matter. A lot of interesting games, a lot of fun things to talk about. We'll talk about all of that. But first, I have to let my thoughts be known about what's going on with Tennessee. And I'm going to leave the defense out of it. I talked about the defense, talked about the special teams, because that was what went well. What went wrong was the other half of the game. More specifically, what went wrong is one specific individual. About a month ago, following the Florida game and how terrible that performance was, how could we lose that game? Everybody was saying Joe Milton, he's not the guy. He sucks. He's terrible. He's the reason our offense is terrible. We need to start Nico immediately. And if that were my general thoughts, then basically how I would sum up this video is, yes, you're right. Joe sucks. He ain't no good. Start Nico. Move on. Get video over. But it's a lot more deep than that, and I'm going to explain why in this video, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But first and foremost, I do have to say I was wrong. I'm willing to admit that. I was wrong. I made a video following the Florida game saying that I stand with Joe Milton as the starting quarterback. He's going to get it together. He's the guy. It was the play calling that was terrible. And yes, both were terrible. Joe was terrible, and the offensive play calling was terrible. We can admit that. We can admit both of those things. It's not one or the other. They both work together. So following the Florida game, UTSA game rolls around. He looks decent. We're like, all right, Joe may have it. South Carolina game rolls back around, and Joe looks terrible. Absolutely abysmal. Tennessee switches to a run-only offense towards the latter half of the game. Eventually finishes off South Carolina because they have... first of all, their offensive line is terrible, so our defense just completely crushed them. And then, we just eventually ran the ball down their throats. South Carolina had no answer. Now the Texas A&M game comes, and before this game, I was telling everybody that the reality of the reality of the situation is Joe is going to have to step up in this game because Texas A&M was rolling in this game with the number one rush defense in the SEC. Number one rush defense in the SEC. We saw it against Alabama. Alabama had a tough time running the ball against Texas A&M. The reason why they won was because Jalen Milroe was able to dice up their defense. He threw the ball pretty well. He had a great game for a quarterback. So I said, and you guys can go back and listen to me say it, Joe is going to have to step up in this game. And this will really prove if he is if he's deserving of being the starting quarterback or not. And how does he respond to that? Well, how does Joe Milton respond to that? By having the worst performance I have ever friggin' seen out of a quarterback in Tennessee football. 100 pass yards. That's it. That was the entire game. 100 pass yards. That is absolutely abysmal for any quarterback, especially at the SEC level. And it gets much worse. It does. 11 of 22. 50%. 50% completion percentage. A lot of those passes that he did complete, the usual dump off. In fact, one of those, the only touchdown that he had in the game was a screen. It wasn't even a screen. It was more of just a dump off to Jacob Warren. It was like a 5-yard touchdown. Nothing spectacular. So after all of that, I mean, after having to watch all that, at halftime, I was like, I want to tell everybody Joe's not the guy. He's terrible. He ain't no good. We're not going to be able to do anything with him. But I think he's going to get it together in the second half. Second half rolls around, same problems, same issues. The tipping point, though, was when Tennessee was at the 15-something yard line. All we had to do was make just a nice completion, maybe another, because Texas A&M by this point was stuffing the run. Milton, all he had to do, maybe a dump-off pass, maybe one of those things. That's all we had to do. We would have been up by 2 scores, and chances are the game would have been over because Texas A&M's offense just could not get it going. But what Joe does is he stays in the pocket for a minute, looks for a receiver. He's sitting there, scanning the area, finding a receiver that's open, doesn't run the ball. Instead, he throws it into double coverage in the end zone, intercepted. Gave Texas A&M new life. And if Texas A&M had an offense that meant anything, they would have potentially scored and gotten the win over Tennessee. And that would have, been detrimental. That was my boiling point. That was my breaking point. That was the straw that broke the Squidtard's back. You guys are right. Joe's not the guy. He's not. It's time to start Nico. This experiment with letting Joe Milton run this offense, the inaccuracies, the poor decision-making, the exact same verse every single week, it's gotten old. It's gotten to a point now to where I'm fed up with it and I'm done with it. Every week, it's the same process over and over and over again, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. The same overthrows, the same underthrows, the same issues with not being able to make right decisions, the same poor decision-making, the same terrible issues every single week. And you hear it in press conferences and from the announcers, the PA announcers, they'll say it. They'll say it too. Joe Milton is a nice guy. He's a great guy. I'm not disagreeing with anybody when they say that. I think Joe's an awesome guy. He's a very awesome person. I mean, Joe Milton I love as a person. I think he's an awesome guy. That has nothing to do with playing quarterback, though. It just doesn't. And the reality of the situation is he's just not. He's a fantastic athlete. One of the best athletes I've seen. But you can also be a terrible quarterback. And that's what Joe is. He's just not a good quarterback. Just not. He can throw the ball 9 million miles down the field. He can throw it to my house from Neyland Stadium. It's just, he won't make it to my house. It'll either go way over my house or it'll be maybe 20 yards short of my house. It won't reach it. It won't reach its intended target. So it's the same problems week after week, year after year. He started in 2021. It's the exact same reason he got benched then, because he couldn't complete a pass. We lost that Pittsburgh game. They start Hendon Hooker week 3. He goes and balls out. I want Joe Milton to succeed. I do. I'm not on here telling you that I don't want him to succeed, but the reality of the situation is we're half of the way through the season. We've played 6 games already, and he hasn't delivered in a single game. It's been the run game. That's our offense, and that's it. That's it. And the latter half of our schedule doesn't get any easier. We're heading straight into the gauntlet. We got Alabama. We got to go into Tuscaloosa next week. And then after that, we got to go into Lexington. And we already know how terrible Tennessee is in SEC road games. And it just may not play out in our favor on the road at Kentucky if we continue this same Jack Diddley Doodah squat offense. And then we got to go on the road at Missouri. Oh, and we might as well, if we're going to continue this, we might as well just go ahead and write Georgia a check. Let them know that their lease has been renewed till 2025. Don't even bother letting them show up to Neyland Stadium. This experiment's gotten old. It has. It's gotten old, and I'm sick of it. It's just not going to. I want Joe to succeed. We all do. I at least hope so. I hope there's not anybody out there who just wants him to fail. And truth is, there are people out there, because there have been people, before the season even started, saying Joe is a terrible quarterback. Right now, the Michigan fans are loving this video because Michigan fans are telling me what to expect. This is exactly what to expect when getting with Joe Milton. This is exactly what you're getting. And I said, no. Let him go out there and prove it. And they were right. Michigan fans are right. It's just the same thing, the same problems every single week. And it's a detriment to this offense, but it's time to start Nico, because if we're going to just forget one side of the ball, then that's not how to play offense. We're just going to lose all of the games that are important to us. So now to the other point. I could end this video off right here, just let you know Joe Milton, terrible quarterback, he ain't no good. Start Nico. It's end of video. But of course, now I got to get to the other point here. You saw it towards the end of the Tennessee A&M game. In fact, go to that last drive. The Tennessee gets a big interception. Julie Lawley picks it off, makes a huge pick, puts us in around the 11-yard line of Texas A&M, and all we have to do is get a touchdown. Game over. Texas A&M doesn't have enough time to go, score 2 touchdowns. That's just the reality of the situation. But how do we respond? Well, the same thing as always. Run up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle. The same problems on offense, per usual. The same stupid, low-tier, doo-doo offense that got us in that position. And why did they give it to Joe? Why didn't they let Joe try and do something? You know the answer. We all know the answer. This coaching staff is a bunch of pansy asses. That's your answer. I don't understand why they don't just bench him. Because this is the situation we're at now. They're scared to give Joe the football. They're scared to let him do anything because they don't want him to make a mistake. They don't want him to throw a pick. They're scared to let Joe throw the ball. They do not trust the quarterback. They don't. Ask any decent offense, ask any national championship winning head coach if they were scared of their quarterback while he was playing. If they were worried to give him the ball. No, not at all. LSU ain't. Go look at LSU play. Go take a look at Jaden Daniels. Watch him go out there and play and ball out every single game. Watch him. Watch LSU. Are they scared of Jaden Daniels? Are they scared to give him the ball? Hell no. Of course not. He's a key he's a key factor in winning the football games. Our coaching staff is scared of Joe. They're scared of him. They're scared of giving him the ball because they don't want him to make a mistake. It's a lack of trust. And it's going to completely dismantle this team. This team, I promise you, will fall apart if this keeps up. Because this lack of trust is going to completely bite us in the back. It is. That's just the reality of the situation. So you can do one of two things at this point. Coach Heupel, because, this is starting to get me pissed off watching y'all do this offense, this run up the middle type of offense. Just pray that our running backs can have a great performance. And they do. We have good running backs. We have a decent running back core, but we don't have, we don't have Herschel friggin' Walker in the backfield. You can't just rely on him all game. That's just the reality of the situation. So now you're in a position where you have to do one of two things. And I'm in favor of the former, which is bench Joe Milton and start someone else. Maybe it's not Nico. Let Gaston Moore. What about Gaston Moore? Let him go out there on the field. If you don't trust a true freshman to go out there and run your offense, then let Gaston Moore do it. Or Navy Schuler or somebody else on the team go out there and perform. This is not going to work. It's just not going to work. So you can do that, Or you can do the other thing, which is run the same exact type of offense you've been running, let Joe Milton go out there and pray for the best. Which, if Joe Milton goes out there every week with the style of offense that you're wanting to play and fails and collapses and he ain't no good, then maybe then you'll start Nico or somebody else on the team. But we all know it. This ain't going to work. Relying so heavily on the run game to the point that you completely drop the pass game. What is this Georgia Tech type offense that y'all are running? It's like a triple option type of... It's not even triple option. It's like one option, and that's run the ball. The single option. That's stupid as hell. And I know Georgia Tech don't run the triple option anymore. You know why? Because it don't work. Now imagine the single option don't work any good either. It turns out that's the case. This defense is amazing. This defense is probably one of the best in the SEC. But this defense isn't going to get 7 pick sixes in a row against teams like Bama and certainly not Georgia. So if you want to win anything meaningful, there has to be some big changes. And if dropping Joe Milton is one of those changes, then so be it. Because from my point of view, he just doesn't have it. He just doesn't have it. The good news is, it's officially Alabama hate week. Today's the 15th. It's been officially 1 year since we put the whooping on them last time. Hashtag 52-49.